Hi everyone, in this video I wanted to discuss about the three pillars towards restoration of the kingdom of Israel. And we know that above the three pillars is the Most High. And from that we have the Crown Council of Ethiopia, which I would like to start off with, which was created by His Imperial Majesty Kadamawi HAILE Selassie, also known as Haile Selassie I, Emperor of Ethiopia and Eritrea. A lot of people sometimes forget the Eritrea part, but as we can see, while His Imperial Majesty reigned, he set about to establish the Federation of Ethiopia and Eritrea. There were foreign actors that did not want to see that unification because, as I discussed in one of my videos, which you can find
Got
on my
that we in the
channel,
field.
let's see, this is my channel, ZionStandsUnited, so it's called Kingdom of Israel, True Location in Africa, Jerusalem, and Ethiopia. I discuss how the actual location of the ancient Kingdom of Israel was in Ethiopia and Eritrea, and how Eritrea is Ephraim, the land of the northern kingdom, where we also know them as the lost tribes, who, after the Assyrian captivity, were scattered. There were still some people, obviously, who remained because, as it says, people will be scattered into every nation. So there's still some inhabitants of Israel, the Israelites, that are still living in Eritrea. However, like I said, the main thing is that Eritrea is the land of the northern kingdoms, whereas you have Ethiopia being the land of the southern kingdom. And in another video, we're going to discuss about how Ezekiel talks about the unification of the two sticks, the stick of Judah, the southern kingdom, and the stick of Ephraim, the northern kingdom, becoming reunited as one united monarchy, one united empire. And His Imperial Majesty set out to do this, and it is not done and over with, because obviously we know that events led to a fracture in those relations between Ethiopians and Eritreans. However, we know that what His Imperial Majesty has set to accomplish will not be done in vain. It will be fulfilled, and it's going to happen. And this is why it talks about Ezekiel, about the two sticks being reunited. So that's why I say His Imperial Majesty, Emperor of Ethiopia and Eritrea, because it also symbolizes his authority and his rule over the kingdom, the united kingdom of Israel. So the three pillars is the Crown Council of Ethiopia, which originated as a constitutional body within the Ethiopian Empire, which were appointed and advised by the reigning emperor of Ethiopia, that being His Imperial Majesty. Now I'm going to go to the site real quick, and as we can see here, here's the president, Prince Eremias Haile Selassie, of the Crown Council. It says right here, the Crown Council of Ethiopia is a constitutional body which advises the reigning emperors of Ethiopia, and during an interregnum, which is where we're at right now, actually acts as the crown. The council's members are initially appointed by an emperor and subsequently sustained in their posts or replaced under the direction of the president of the council. So this is the first pillar. Now, the next pillar I want to discuss is the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation. This is its official website. Now, before I get into that, I also want to highlight some of the letters because, as some people may not be aware of, the Ethiopian World Federation was set up by His Imperial Majesty. However, after the after the illegitimate coup to remove the throne from Ethiopia and set up a false government in the 1970s, after that period, the Ethiopian World Federation started to fall into disarray, I would say, and it became defunct. And this was something that was done by the royal family to give their support to the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation. So this is why I'm not on the Ethiopian World Federation page. I'm on the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation. We're going to take a look at the official letters to actually see what the royal family had to say regarding this. So this is a letter from His Imperial Highness Asfa Wosen El Selassie, Crown Prince of Ethiopia, to Abuna Emmanuel Foxy. It says, "Thank you for your letter of January 31st, 1983, and the subsequent pledges of allegiance we received in your petition of May 17, 1983. We are, of course, very familiar with the fact that the Ethiopian World Federation, Incorporated, was established on August 25th, 1937, by my father, Emperor Haile Selassie, primarily to create outside Ethiopia an international pressure group with various chapters worldwide to support during the 1936 to 1941 war the Ethiopian people's liberation struggle against the Italian occupation of our beloved country Ethiopia, and also to enhance the black peoples of the world quest to effect unity, solidarity, liberty, freedom, and self-determination while securing justice and maintaining the integrity of Ethiopia, concurrent with which the Rastafarian movement in the West, we are pleased to note, has taken a great stride of development on various levels. It is nevertheless regrettable that presently the Ethiopian World Federation and the Rastafarian movement as a whole have been deflected from their constitutional objectives by various unfavorable conditions and personality cults, as a divisive result of which they have not effectively rallied under the imperial banner with a structured body counseling for a leadership of unity to achieve the same sacred goals set out by my father, Emperor Haile Selassie. In the same spirit, I call upon all the followers of the movement today to embrace and consolidate their international activities in unison and also assist in the liberation struggle and the restoration of the constitutional monarchy of the Solomonic dynasty in Ethiopia. Even though we are very pleased to note that the grassroots of the movements as a whole are exerting their individual energies and influence to reach out and support our unfortunate exiled brethren and those caught up in the wars, strife, and famine victims in Ethiopia of today, the results of their valuable effort have been ineffective, uncoordinated, and haphazard. In order to redress these issues hit here too, we are therefore pleased to give our considered consent to your petition that henceforth the Ethiopian World Federation Inc. and the Rastafarian movement as a whole, of which you are the international president and the founding member in England respectively, should organize all efforts and contribute their energies in unison to these sacred causes under our trusteeship so as to centralize and consolidate all related activities and avoiding, can't really read what that says. I don't know if in connection or, well, it says in avoiding any wasteful exercises and imposter elements both inside and outside the movements and the imperial house, so as to be able to not only directly and legitimately under the only nominee of our Supreme Council with the nominee of your organization, which shall constitute the administrative directorate of our trusteeship, relevant to the general cause we have long espoused. We shall therefore be pleased to exchange official documents and bestow the relevant credentials necessary for the revitalization of the sacred aims and objectives as originally laid out by my beloved father, Emperor Haile Selassie, so as to renew our highest considerations to the eventual success of the sacred goals of the movements worldwide under the renewed banner of the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation, Inc. Please convey our fraternal greetings to all the followers of the movements in general and the members of your organization in particular. Liberty in our nation." And then the seal, and we see the signature of His Imperial Highness Asfawosen Haile Selassie, Crown Prince of Ethiopia. So this is an important document because like it says, we see the seals affixed coming from the royal family directly from one of the heirs in line to actually sit upon the throne of Ethiopia, Wilson Haile Selassie, giving support to and support as well as consideration and consent, consider consent for for the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation. This being the renewed banner of the now defunct Ethiopian World Federation Inc. So now we see the support behind the royal family. Here's another document, and let's see what this letter is about. Let's see. So this is the letter of the Emmanuel Foxes appointed by Abuna Emmanuel Foxy, appointed by the Crown Council of Ethiopia as the official liaison between the Crown Council of Ethiopia and the Rastafarian community worldwide. So we see that he is not only the international president, but we also see that there was also support given by the current Crown Prince, right here. Let's see, His Imperial Highness Ermias Haile Selassie. So now it says, to whom it may concern, this is to confirm that Abuna Emmanuel Foxy has been appointed by the Ethiopian Crown Council to be our official liaison with the Rastafarian community worldwide. Emmanuel Foxy, through his many years of dedication, had also served in the same capacity with my late uncle, Emperor Amha Selassie. We look forward to working with him and his organization further in the humanitarian and cultural works of the Crown Council and keeping and teaching the legacy of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, the first for coming generations. Sincerely, His Imperial Highness Ermias Haile Selassie. And if we just take a look at the Royal Charter, because that was written, that was sent, that correspondence. So the initial correspondence with regards to the IEWF official authorization letter was July 1983. We see this. It's always good to see the correspondence between the Crown Council and the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation's three pillars working together in harmony. We know this one was a letter, as it says, a liaison, Emmanuel Foxy being the liaison between the Crown Council and the Rastafarian community. And we can also see in its actions, they set up the Amha Selassie Basic School. So, they're definitely committed doing the cultural works. As it says right here, the Church of Haile Selassie Wellness Center, in cooperation with the Amha Selassie Basic School, is offering free blood pressure and health checks for community residents who send their children to the Amha Selassie Basic School. And the program started November 16th and then, still continues on to this day. So, here's some pictures. But like I said, it's good to see that, we are doing the works. And just to go back to the Royal Charter, this being the document that actually, gives the actual creation of the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation. This is the actual charter right here, but, as it's hard to see, I'm glad they wrote it out so I could read it. So it says, Royal Charter, be it known that the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation, Incorporated, created by His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, and governed by the Crown Prince, His Imperial Highness Murd Asmach Asfa Wilson Haile Selassie, and apparent heir, His Imperial Highness Prince Zara Jacob Asfa Wilson Haile Selassie, in accordance with the powers vested in us, hereby create and designate as one of Imperial Ethiopia institution the following member organization to hereby be known as Crown Prince, His Imperial Highness Murd Asmach Asfa Wilson Haile Selassie. Chapter Local 1, with all rights, privileges, powers, and authority to which the Imperial Ethiopian Institution are entitled pursuant to the working constitution and bylaws of the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. In witness thereof, the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated aforesaid has this 27th day of September 1983 caused these present to be duly executed and His Imperial Highness Crown Prince seal hereunto affixed, the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, and then this being the two signatures, His Imperial Highness Crown Prince Murd Asfa Wilson Haile Selassie, Heir Apparent, His Imperial Highness Prince Zara Jacob Asfa Wilson, Haile Selassie, and then, this being their two signatures and the seals attached. So I like how they set it up where they said created by His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I, because by His Imperial Majesty being directly responsible for the creation of the now defunct Ethiopian World Federation, we know that the spirit of Yah has now transferred over the reins from that organization to the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, being set up through his offspring and his lineage, Crown Prince and apparent heir. So we could see that it had a direct role in setting up, leading from the now defunct Ethiopian World Federation to as it said in the official letter, the new banner of it being now called the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation. So I want to show this video. It's from the Jatu page. They have videos prior to the passing of Abuna Foxy, where he would give interviews, and they also have videos of Church of Haile Selassie I services. And in this video, it shows the Crown Council of Ethiopia President Prince Eremias Haile Selassie awarding Abuna Foxy with one of the highest awards that could be given by the royal family.
His Majesty Rastafari.
One voice.
His Majesty. Yes, the Prince will leave here 7:30, but he can stay still until 3:04 and can relax. But we will make a presentation of the mic team can speak there. His Majesty.
Last Firstly, I want to thank everyone again for your wonderful reception this evening. It's always a pleasure to come here because I feel I'm coming home, and it feels like being amongst family. Tonight is a very special evening because we are honoring Abuna Fox for many years of his dedicated service to the welfare of Ethiopia. He has been a consistent fighter for freedom, for causes in which he believed in, for causes which were unpopular and unsurmountable. But in his persistence over the years, he stood firm to his principles, and he's continued to live a life dedicated to service and also his special service to Ethiopia. So for that, I feel very honored tonight to honor him with Commander of the Star of Honor of Ethiopia, which is one of the highest decorations given under the crown of Ethiopia. Thank you so much.
Good star. Yes.
His Majesty.
Blessed be Jah.
It is a good thing to give thanks unto Jah, to sing praise to thy name, O Lord Most High, to show forth thy loving kindness in the morning, thy faithfulness every night. Put instrument of 10 strings upon our solemn sound, for though Yahweh has made us glad through our works, we tremble the works of our hands. We Selassie, so great are thy works, and thy thoughts are very deep. A brutish man know it not, and a fool understand this. His Majesty.
Emperor Haile Selassie I first give thanks.
Let them know. Everyone can just pull their glass of their wine or whatever is at the table, so we just,
Like, sauce.
Yes,
The presentation of this star to me.
One voice.
But at the same time, it's 55 years Ayakai Rasta struggle, Rasta is here, As a young man, I come on the scene at about 20 odd. Rasta was repatriation, no. But 50 years ago, I introduced politics in the Rasta movement worldwide. London, Holland, Rome. I'm a traveler of His Majesty, you know, and I give thanks again. A parliament we are going on.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Parliament, sir.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, we hear that. Oh.
So now the next pillar that I want to discuss would be the Church of Haile Selassie. If we go to Abuna, we'll see that the Abuna is Emmanuel Jacinto Foxy. Unfortunately, he recently passed, and as we can see, there was actually an article that was done by the Jamaican Observer. This being his son, Leo Foxy, has now become the new Abuna. And here's a picture of him being ordained Abuna. So we know that, you know, the reins have transferred as far as who now is leading through the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation and the Church of Haile Selassie I. And I just want to scroll down a little bit because this was a recent article from August 27th. It says that, scroll down to 29-year-old Lel A. Fox, who was confirmed on Sunday as Abuna for the Church of Haile Selassie I, which is based at Oxford Street, yards from the Coronation Market in downtown Kingston, and close to the lines of demarcation between rival gangs in West Kingston. It finally gave credence to the belief of his late father and predecessor, Abuna Emmanuel Fox, and the church's belief that the return of the centuries-old dynasty to Addis Ababa is its main objective. Again, when it talks about the return of the centuries-old dynasty to Addis Ababa, what that is referring to is the reestablishment of the Ethiopian monarchy, the constitutional monarchy, and thereby, as I discussed with the land of Israel being located in Ethiopia and Eritrea, and His Imperial Majesty, as we see right here, is being a member of the Solomonite dynasty and a descendant of King Solomon, who himself was the son of David. We see that they ruled the kingdom of Israel and Judah, or also just known as the kingdom of Israel, is that by returning the throne to Ethiopia, you're also restoring the kingdom of Israel. So this is something that is very important, and it's good that this is highlighted by the Crown Council, by the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation, as we read in the official letter, and by the Church of Haile Selassie I. This is why I say these are the three pillars. Let's continue reading. All right, so this is a quote from him. He says, "My father founded this church here in West Kingston in 1987. Remember, Rastafarians used to go to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church in the 1970s. But after 1974, and when the monarchy was abolished, they killed our patriarchs and they killed our abunas." He recalled as one of the main reasons for starting the church. He said that the main mission of the church now is to bring back the constitutional monarchy to Ethiopia. The church also insists that His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I is Yah, which I also discussed in my previous videos. As we can see right here, go back. Haile Selassie I is Yah. And I also talk about it again in another older video, Haile Selassie I in the Bible, and then also in another one, Haile Selassie I found in the Hebrew Bible, New Evidence. So there's a wealth of information, and like I said, I go through evidence throughout the scriptures, laying out the prophecies that are referring to His Imperial Majesty. So let's see, if we scroll down, it says in 1972 they abolished the throne of Addis Ababa. History teaches us that is a goal that we can't let go of. It is like a fire. This is an important word, fire. Remember that, fire that burns within us, and until we can see the throne come back to Ethiopia, we will forever say that's the fire that burns within us to see that throne return to Ethiopia and Eritrea. to see the restoration of the kingdom of Israel. But with the way to go forward, we have to be realistic. We have to be economically viable to help Ethiopia and to help our people before we could think about anything else, he added. All right, so let's see. Fox argued that the Church of Haile Selassie I praises His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, not only as Yah, but as the King of Kings and the conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. And with the Church's determination to survive, it is determined to spread its wings, which start with the official naming of the religion, which, well, actually, I prefer not to say religion because for me, it is a way of life, spirituality, and continues with expansion into new places like New York, Barbados, Grenada, Haiti, and St. Vincent. My father was a member of the Ethiopian World Federation, but after 1974, when everybody betrayed the emperor and socialism and communism took over, my father left the EWF and formed the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation, Fox pointed out. So, and we had just got done reading that too. You know, if we go back and let's just take a look at something else just to see, you know, obviously we know now that the Abuna is Lil Fox. And as we can see, they have charters set up in Barbados, England, Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, United States. They're working throughout the diaspora right now. But as we know, diaspora is scattered all throughout the world. So we know that there's a lot of work to be done. But this is where it starts out with is the three pillars. And I will also add that there is actually the fourth pillar being the diaspora itself that must come together. And I'm going to highlight that by getting into the scriptures. But before I do, I just want to highlight also the works, as we see the works that the church is doing, what the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation is doing through working with the Crown Council. This here picture being of Prince Eremias Haile Selassie, and as the article says, His Imperial Highness Prince Eremias Haile Selassie returns from Panama, and it says that he had been working with the diaspora. Let's just take a look into the article to read it in its entirety. So let's scroll down. So I'm gonna start right here. So to that end, one of the main focuses or highlights of the state visit was to help ameliorate the socio-economic conditions for disenfranchised peoples of African descent through education and the fostering of economic opportunities that promote multilateral trade and investment with Africa, as well as peoples of African descent throughout the diaspora or sixth region as referred to by the African Union. A special reception in which His Imperial Highness Prince Eremias Haile Selassie made a televised keynote address was held by the Rastafari community in Panama in partnership with the National Secretariat for the Development of Afro-Panamanians and the Ministry of Culture. His Imperial Highness Prince Eremias Haile Selassie and advisors to the Crown Council also traveled to Cologne, Panama, where the majority of Panama's Rastafarian community live. So I think this was great because, again, this is, you know, this was a visit where we see in this picture, obviously, His Imperial Highness with other delegates and leaders from different organizations. And this is just one article, but we know that the Crown Council has been very busy at work with taking part and meeting with different Pan-African organizations throughout the diaspora. So this is very important because, like I said, it highlights that right now, as we know, we're living during the second Exodus. It's important that we as a people start to come together so that we can collectively organize and put our resources together. Because when we go out there, we need to go out there as a group, not just as individuals. It makes things a lot easier when it comes to becoming established once we get into the continent. Because as I'll discuss in another video, there's definitely steps to getting to the restoration of Israel. Like I said, I talked about the three pillars, including the fourth one being the diaspora itself. As we can see right here, Prince Eremias Haile Selassie spoke with members of the diaspora, with the Rastafarian community, as it says, the National Secretariat for the Development of Afro-Panamanians. That's the diaspora. As soon as you start seeing Afro, it's usually diaspora, whether it be Afro-Dominicans or Afro-Brazilians, Afro-Chileans, or Afro-Hondurans. So all throughout Afro-Americans. So as it says right here, as well as peoples of African descent throughout the diaspora, also known as Sixth Region, referred to by the African Union. So I wanted to highlight that, and now I also want to take a look into the scriptures because I want to bring everything together. And this is going to be very important to highlight the role of these pillars coming together. So I'm going to start with Zechariah chapter 12. It says, "The burden of the word of Yah for Israel, saith Yah, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem." Now, where's Jerusalem? I even talked about it a little bit in this video right here. I urge you to also check it out. Kingdom of Israel, true location in Africa, Jerusalem, and Ethiopia, and how the city of Jerusalem, that holy city, is now called Axum, which is in northern Ethiopia today. So we see right here, as it says, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it." Now this is interesting. Though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. Like, what's going on? For further context, I'm going to be connecting this with other passages in the Bible that go exactly hand in hand with it. They're literally all one prophecy. Now, we're going to connect this to, let's see. So I'm going to start with Ezekiel 38, and then I'm going to touch on to Revelations 20, and then Luke. So Ezekiel 38, it says, "And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him." Now, who is Gog? Who is Magog? Who is Meshech and Tubal? Now let's take a look at this picture. It says right here, if we read in the book of Genesis, chapter 10, 2 through 5, it says, "The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz. And the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands." Again, if you have a Bible, follow along, open up your Bible, pull it up, read Genesis 10 through 2 through 5. It literally tells you who the Gentiles are. And why is this important? Because we also see right here who Magog is. We also see who Tubal and Meshech is. These are the sons of Japheth. The time of the Gentiles and the identity of the children of Japheth are Europeans and Asians. When you look at the United Nations Security Council, like the people at the top, the most powerful nations in the world, the ones that have the highest, the most wealth, and I'm not talking about natural resources underground, because as far as who possesses the most natural resources, of course that'll be Africa. But who are the ones that are exploiting Africa? Who are the ones that are taking its natural resources? Who are the ones that are responsible for the corruption? Now, we know that African leaders play a part in it, but the people that are the main ones pulling all the strings, the people that possess the most powerful weapons, like nuclear weapons, they're all European and they're all Asian. That's where we get the word Caucasian from. As it says in Ezekiel 27:3, "Javan, Tubal, and Meshech, they were thy merchants. They traded the persons of men and vessels of brass in thy market." What do you think about when you think about brass? We think of a commodity. Who controls the commodities? Who controls the stock market? Europeans and Asians. When we think of they traded the persons of men, what else can we think of that word for? What's synonymous with that? Human trafficking. Who are the biggest human traffickers? I mean, just go back about a little bit more than like around 400 years ago, and you got the transatlantic slave trade. Those were Europeans. Asians also played a role in human trafficking today. So as we can see right now, pictures of the Ashkenazi and Jewish family elite in China. You can see a picture of the the Ashkenazi controlled state of Israel with Russia and America, European Commission, and all these Asian nations. I mean, it's clear to see who the Gentiles are. Why is this important? Because it's showing you who this is referring to. When it says, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Because this connects with Luke 21:24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Now we know this first part right here, this happened in 70 AD when Jerusalem was attacked by the Gentiles, which were the Romans at the time, and Jerusalem was destroyed, and you had a lot of Israelites that were scattered throughout different parts of Africa, and then later we have different slave trades that were going on that were then taking them and bringing them into the West through the transatlantic slave trade. And you also had some that were also being brought into Asia, into other parts of the world. Again, we were scattered. But the second part is also really important. It says, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now, for people that may be unsure about whether Ethiopia is the true Holy Land, some may say, well, wouldn't it be, does that mean that the Gentiles are Hamites? Well, let's take a look at what's going on in Ethiopia today. Right now, Ethiopia is being divided by war and ethnic federalism. But the people that are getting hit the worst are the Habesha people, which is interesting because these people, as we see with the Crown Council of Ethiopia, the region is the Ethiopian community in diaspora, the Eritrean community in diaspora, and then the Habesha community. Who are the Habeshas? Modern day Amhara, Tigrayan, and Tigranya peoples who are, all right, look, throughout Ethiopia and Eritrea. So these people, unironically, because if you research the Deuteronomy 28 curses, you'll see that they will follow our people wherever they go, are going through a lot of different persecutions from both the TPLF and the Oromo-backed Ethiopian government. So we're just going to take a look at it right now because, as we know, if you look towards northern Ethiopia and the Tigray region, you have the TPLF, and as it says right here, enabled by the U.S. government, a small group of Tigrayan autocratic and kleptocratic elite violate in every respect the people of Ethiopia for 27 hard years. Without the diplomatic material and financial support of the U.S., the TPLF-led brutal and corrupt regime could not survive months, let alone decades. To add insult to Ethiopia's injury, the U.S. government is once again at the forefront giving support to the same Tigrayan elite that has declared a destructive and brutal war on Ethiopia. The 2020 TPLF's unprovoked aggression began by conducting genocidal propaganda against the people of Amhara, again, one of the people that are directly connected to the Habesha community as being the regents of the Crown Council, and people who are also descendants of Israel, of the ancient Israelites. And it says, as we continue, we can see right here that it says that they're under their slogan, they have a score to settle with the Amharas and the government of Abiy Ahmed. Now, the interesting thing is Abiy Ahmed, he's not even an Amhara, he's a Oromo. However, the TPLF don't like him, and that's all that the U.S. government wants is for Ethiopia to be divided. So they're giving all their support and financial backing. Majority of it is going towards the TPLF to fund these wars, to keep Ethiopia destabilized. So we can see who America is supporting through the TPLF And then we can see right here, they have articles on it. Survivors of the TPLF attack in Amhara describe gang rape, looting, and physical assaults. Women being raped, people killed. There's a whole Amhara genocide. And then when it comes to the Oromo government, as we can see right here, Amhara Association of America calls for Prime Minister Abe resignation over Wolega massacre. We see that, if we scroll down, since Abiy Ahmed became prime minister in 2018, thousands of innocent and unarmed ethnic Amhara civilians have been massacred in the Oromo regions of Ethiopia, because Ethiopia is divided into ethnic regions, which was set up initially in the 90s by the TPLF, who are no longer in power now, but are still being backed by the United States government. Now, it says the Amhara Association of Ethiopia also called for the resignation of Shemeles Abdessa, president of Oromia region, and an investigation to the horrifying massacre. They largely condemned the June 18, 2022 massacre of hundreds of Amhara civilians by the Oromo Liberation Army in West Wolega Zone, Oromia region, Ethiopia, with complicity and reported direct involvement of government security forces. So, according to that first article, it talked about, it kind of made it look like, the TPLF were, obviously they are an aggressor, but basically like the Amhara and Abe are victims. But really, it's more so the Amhara, the Habesha people, and even other ethnic groups in Ethiopia. The Abe government has also taken its part in these massacres, as we read right here, that they were complicit in these massacres. And if we keep reading, it says the massacres against Amharas have been ongoing since the divisive ethnic federal apartheid system that minoritized Amharas in many regions was introduced in the early 1990s. Now, if we look here, this is the Tigrayan Liberation Front Wikipedia page. They came into power in the 90s, and they were responsible for this ethno-linguistic federalization and ethnic federalism that happened in Ethiopia. So they also were responsible for this as well. So we see that it goes on to say, since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali, who was an Oromo, came to power, he allowed the OLA, the Oromo Liberation Army, which is a surprise because he's supporting his own, to return to Ethiopia armed with a base to recruit and train. The intensity and scale of massacres against Amharas by the OLA, with the support of the Oromia regional government and security forces, has increased. Now, it goes on to say, Oromia regional president Shimeles Abdessa never acknowledged the recurrent massacres of Amharas in the region he is leading, signaling that ethnic cleansing of Amharas is a regional policy. Now, again, this is a much larger article, and there are more out there of like just discussing things that I'm not going to say all the Oromos are doing it, but you definitely have a group, a section of them that are taking place, that are committing these horrible atrocities. So we see how you have the TPLF being backed by the United States government, which is, the United States being a Gentile nation, as the majority of the people that are in control are Gentiles. And then you also have the other side, Abey's government, which we could see right here, Russia, Ethiopia, Inc. military cooperation agreement, that they have been having close ties with Russia. Russia has long been one of Ethiopia's leading suppliers of military hardware. So the weapons that they're using to commit genocides and massacres against the Amharas on the Abe government side has mainly been coming from Russia. And we also see right here, Russia seeks closer ties to Ethiopia. And also, Russia-China followed UN meetings on Tigray famine. So it says Russia and China helped Ethiopia to delay meetings in the United Nations to discuss the declaration of famine in Tigray. And it says, if we keep reading, that effective diplomatic maneuvers in New York by Russia and China meant the Ethiopians were quite successful in staving off open meetings and the Security Council for months and months and months. Why? Because there's a huge black media censorship and blackout and prevention of critical aid and food and support to the people in northern Ethiopia, not only in Tigray, but even in the Amhara region. There's another article where we see that it says at least 800 worshippers died defending the Ark of the Covenant from looters amid ethnic massacre in Ethiopia. And as we scroll down, it says worshippers rushed to protect the church where the Ark is said to be secured after violent clashes between soldiers and rebel militia near the sites. Christians in the Eastern African country claim the sacred Ark is being kept under guard at the Church of St. Mary of Zion in Axum, Ethiopia's holiest city in Tigray region. Again, the same place I was talking about, Axum, being modern-day Jerusalem, is where the Ark of the Covenant is located. As I discussed in one of my videos, where the Ark of the Covenant is also known as Zion in the Kibur Nagas, Book of the Glory of the Kings. And we see how the Ark of the Covenant, it dwells in Axum. So we know where Zion is. Zion is in Ethiopia, and we see all of this stuff happening. Again, it's symbolizing, it's connecting directly with the prophecy in Luke 21:24. It says up to 800 people are believed to have been killed during the massacre which took place in November. News of the bloodbath has only now emerged as the region has been cut off from outsiders, with Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed shutting down internet and mobile networks. He has deployed his country's army against the leadership of the region. So now we see right now that Abiy has also directly been involved in committing massacres against the Habesha people. So we see the massacres are happening to the Amhara, to the Tigrayan, to the Amhara and the Tigrayan people, who are Habesha peoples, descendants of the Israelites. So now when we go take a look at who works with Abiy's side of Ethiopia, you have Russia and China, again, Gentile nations. So on the TPLF side, you have the United States government, Gentiles, and then on the Abiy government side, you have Russia and China, Gentiles. So again, we see Luke 21:24 is being fulfilled, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Because despite all of this happening, we see, if we look at, let's see, where's the Ethiopia's central bank is restricting the amount of cash that travelers have. People that are residing in Ethiopia, trying to travel abroad and so forth. But yet, we look at another article and it says Ethiopia opens local banking sector to foreign players. We know that this isn't, when it says foreign, it's not referring to other African nations. So who is it talking about? The Gentiles. So we see everything that Ethiopia is trying to do. And again, where is this all going to come up to play? We read it in Luke 21, but we're going to read it here in Ezekiel 38. Let's continue. In this third verse, it says, and say, thus saith Yah our Elohim, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Well, we already see how they're controlling and manipulating Ethiopia. Now, let's continue reading. It says, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. We read how Gomer is also a Gentile nation. So again, it's all lining up. It says, be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited, in the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. So this eighth What is 8th verse? What is it talking about? This is referring to the second Exodus. Why? Because it says that after many days thou shalt be visited, in the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. And you're going to see more evidence that this is talking about the second Exodus. Well, relating to the events of the second Exodus and what follows afterwards. It says, thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. Thus saith Yah our Elohim. It shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. And thou shalt say, I will go to the land of unwalled villages, I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. Again, this is opening it up for you to see who this is talking about. Because, as I said, this is taking place during the events and what follows after the second Exodus. It says, then to take a spoil and to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. Now it should all be coming to you. Because, this is the huge clue right here. Upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods. What are cattle and goods? Those are like substances. So they have gotten their goods, their belongings, and probably other things as well to help them in their move to the Holy Land. And now they're dwelling in the midst of the land. And they're at peace because, as it says, they dwell safely. They are at rest. Now, this connects to Genesis 15:13 through 14. And this is Yah speaking in a vision to Abraham. And it says, and he said unto Abraham being before his name was changed to Abraham, it was Abraham. And he said unto Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Now, afflict, that means to oppress, that means to treat cruelly, to be basically a slave. Because that's what you are. When you work for someone without compensation, those years during which our ancestors were in bondage, during the years of slavery before the Civil War, that's right there. That's that cruel affliction. And we could see it today because right now, what are we on? We're living in the modern day plantation. Now, we changed out the chains for an employee ID number, but we still get mistreated by the police. There's still large amounts of inequality. There's still large amounts of injustice and gentrification and just a bunch of other things that go back to Deuteronomy 28. But now we see that in the following verse it says, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. Wow, right here, great substance. So it's telling you that the land of our captives, the ones that held us in captivity, that oppressed us, they are going to be judged. And afterwards they shall come out with great substance. So now, this judgment, does that mean, while they're being judged, we need to stay here? No, because it gives you the clue that they shall be afflicted for 400 years. When did slaves arrive in the Americas? Well, again, this was a video that I also made where I just talked about, and it's called Hebrew Israelites Are Black, 1619 to COVID-19, Second Exodus, Rastafari Liberation. 1619, the first slave ship arrives in America. 400 years, 2019, COVID begins. What does this connect directly to? Well, let's take a look at Revelations 18:4. All right, so Revelations 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. So some people may take a look at this Genesis 15, chapter 15, verse 13 through 14, and be like, well, let's stay here while the nation is judged, the nation where our ancestors were afflicted, where they still undergo oppression to this day. And wait and wait and wait. No, because the Bible says, the scripture says right here, come out of her, my people. So after those 400 years, it's time for us to come out. And we see that because there are Israelites that are repatriating and leaving to the continent, going to different parts, whether it be Ghana, South Africa, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, some people going into Ethiopia, different parts of Africa. So it's happening, but it hasn't fully kicked off yet. Now, to go back to, let's see, Ezekiel 38. Well, hold on. Okay, so we see how all of this connects. Now, let's go back to the Ezekiel 38. Let's see. So now I'm going to start at because I just read the 12th verse about the substances and goods to see that this is directly correlating with Genesis chapter 15, verse 14. So now we look at the 13th verse. It says, Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered the company? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey? To carry away silver and gold, and to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil. Interesting. Here's another clue right here. Merchants and Tarshish. Didn't we just read that? Yeah, we just read that. Where? Well, that was in Genesis chapter 10, and it was also in Ezekiel 27. Because in Ezekiel 27, it talks about the merchants and the people that participate in human trafficking and selling natural resources and commodities. But we also see in Genesis 10. Why? Because listed under the sons of Japheth, who also are Gentiles, we see, and the sons of Japhan, again, he being a descendant of Japheth, is Elisha and Tarshish. So we see Tarshish as being, again, a descendant of the Gentiles. So it says, therefore, in the 14th verse, it says, therefore, son of man, prophesy and say unto Gog, thus saith Yah our Elohim, in that day when my people are of Israel dwelleth safely, shalt thou not know it? And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company and a mighty army. Now we know obviously that, nowadays, when we look at the Bible, we have the words that they used back then when they were looking at a vision, they will describe it as an animal, like we see in Revelations, how it said some of the people of the armies had faces like locusts. So they will give it descriptions like horses and stuff, but obviously we know now it would likely be talking about tanks, fighter jets, anti-craft aircraft weapons, and just missiles and stuff like that. But back then they described it as horses. But those things now, again, that's why it's important to just interpret them and look at it from the lens that realizing that these are events to come to pass. So they will associate it with a horse, but it's just using that as a description of someone that is moving really fast and powerful, like if you were riding on a horse. So that could be someone that's like flying a plane that's shooting missiles. It could be someone that's in a tank, someone that's in an SUV that has a machine gun attached to it. Just different things like that. Now it says in the 16th verse, and thou shalt come up against my people Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. So it's directly telling you that, look, this is what's going to come to pass. They are going to come, these nations, as we said when we were wondering, okay, what does it mean when it's saying that though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it, this being Jerusalem, all the nations come together to fight against Jerusalem, we could see it connecting directly with Ezekiel 38. That through Gog and Magog, all these nations are going to be gathered together. And again, I'm going to connect this directly with Revelations 20, because as we see right here, if we go to Revelations 20, starting at the 7th verse, it says, "And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are on the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and encompassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from Yah out of heaven, and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever." Now, again, highlighting these parts right here, Gog and Magog, key words. We're reading about them right now in Ezekiel 38. We also are going to, again, hear the part right here, fire. Remember how I talked about the fire and the Jamaican Observer article, a quote from Abuna Lel, how there's a fire in us. So it says, "And fire came down from Yah out of heaven and devoured them." So again, we gotta pay attention to these key words. So I'm going to go back to Ezekiel 38, and I'm going to continue from where I started off at. So that would be this. Now I'm going to be starting at the 17th verse. It says, "Thus saith Yah our Elohim, art thou he of whom I have spoken in old time by my servants the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days many years that I would bring thee against them? And it shall come to pass at the same time, when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith Yah our Elohim, that my fury shall come up in my face." So now we just saw about how fire will come down from Yah. We just talked about too in Revelations 20, how they will compass around the breadth of the camp of the saints, and they went up on the breadth of, the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about. So we see how this direct correlation, and then following, after they come about the beloved city, as we talked about Jerusalem, now known as modern day Axum in Ethiopia, and fire came down from Yah out of heaven and devoured them. Now we see right here, we're going to follow in that into the 19th verse. It says, "For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the heaven and the beasts of the field and all creeping things that creep upon the earth and all the men that are upon the face of the earth shall shake at my presence, and the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against them throughout all my mountains, saith Yah our Elohim. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. And I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood, and I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him in overflowing rain and great hailstones, fire and brimstone." We just read that, right? "Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am Yah." This correlates with these two verses right here. "And the devil that deceived them," well, it correlates with fire coming down from Yah of heaven and devoured them. And then the 10th and 11th, we see it talks about, "And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone," fire and brimstone, "where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them." Again, we see right here, "Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am Yah." Again, they will not be able to hide from Yah. So we see that, different chapters obviously expound upon the contents of the events that are happening even more and more, so that we're able to see a bigger picture. And now we see that these events are coming to pass, but there's an order to them. So right now we see the second Exodus happening. And now that I've covered the Ezekiel 38, Revelations 20, Luke chapter 21, verse 24, Genesis 15, chapter 15, verses 13 through 14, and Revelations 18:4, I'm going to wrap it up with Zechariah 12. So if we scroll down, we started out the first and we went down to the third. So now I'm going to start at the fourth verse. "In that day, saith Yah, I will smite every horse with astonishment and his rider with madness, and I will open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength, and Yah of hosts, our Elohim. As I said, now I use the word Yah instead of Lord, because the name of our Lord is Yah, and God in Hebrew is Elohim. So he is Yah, our Elohim. So I just want to again highlight that, so in case people don't get confused, that I'm not trying to add anything or take away, but I highlighted that in my previous videos when we looked at the Hebrew word for Lord is Yah, and the Hebrew word for God is Elohim. So it says in the 6th verse, "And that day will I make the governors of Judah like an hearth of fire." Again, like I said, this is important that we catch these key words, fire. So we see it, how it's talked about throughout the scriptures. So it says, "In that day will I make the governors of Judah like an hearth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour all the people round about, on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem." So we see how there's fire raining from heaven. We see how the governors of Judah are going to be like a hearth of fire. How they're going to be devouring people like fire on both sides. Again, it's symbolism, but it's also to show that deep nationalistic pride in us as being Israelites. How we are going to be so fervent like fire that we are going to be completely committed to defending our land. That is our land. That is the land that the Most High gave us. And the Most High will also be defending us as well. So we see in the 7th verse it says, "Yah also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah." So this is why I said that 4th pillar would be the diaspora, because what do you think about when we think about tents? A tent is just a temporary dwelling. If you go camping in the woods, that's not your permanent spot. That's not your permanent dwelling place. It's just a temporary living quarter. So right now, while we're in the land of the captivity, and this goes to all the diaspora that are scattered all across the 4 corners of the earth, if you're not dwelling in the Holy Land, you're dwelling in a tent, because this is not our land. So all of us that are outside of the Holy Land, all of us that are outside of Ethiopia and Eritrea, we're all just dwelling in tents. So it says that, but this is important that you realize the next part of it, because yes, though we may all dwell in tents, are we all Judah? Because there are 12 tribes. And now you can also attribute this in a way when it's talking about Judah to the southern kingdom, because the southern kingdom was known as the kingdom of Judah, and the northern kingdom was just known as altogether as being Israel, but it's also referred to as Ephraim because they were the leading tribe over it. However, to go back to where I was at, is that this right here, this verse is referring to the tents of Judah. Now, where would those tents be? Well, primarily they're located in the Americas and the Caribbean. Why? Because as we know, the southern kingdom, after Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans, they scattered. You have Israelites, obviously, that still remain in Ethiopia and Eritrea to this day, but many scattered throughout Africa. And then from Africa, you had a large group that rebuilt a kingdom, which you can still find in a lot of old maps, which was known as the Kingdom of Judah. And this kingdom was located in West Africa. So that was the area by which a lot of people were taken out during the transatlantic slave trade, of which they were Israelites, and brought into the Americas and the Caribbean. So this Pan-African diaspora, this 6th region of the African Union, the diaspora, the people that are living in the West, those are the tents of Judah. And that's why I refer to them as being that 4th pillar, because I'm not neglecting the northern kingdom, because I also want to highlight them in another video, because they have been because they have been scattered in places like among the Aboriginal tribes in Australia and other parts of the world. Because as it says, we were scattered throughout the four corners, and Judah's also been scattered throughout the four corners. However, the majority of them are dwelling in the Caribbean and the Americas. So now in the 8th verse, it says, "In that day shall Yah defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as Elohim, as the angel of Yah before them." So now when we look at that, when we think of the Elohim, or God, someone who you revere, someone who you pray to, someone who you honor, is telling you that we're going to look to the royal family for support, for guidance, for instruction, for help. How do we mobilize, and how do we and assistance with building up our resources? Because obviously right there, this is even more than the end game, because now that you have the second Exodus being completed, you have all these nations gathering together to fight against the kingdom. This is going to be very important. This is where the Crown Council is going to have a very important part to play, and that's why I say the House of David, also known as the Ethiopian Solomonic dynasty, the descendants of His Imperial Majesty, the Crown Council of Ethiopia, are going to be as God, or as Elohim, as the angel of Yahweh, as the angel of Yah, because an angel is a messenger before them. And then it says in the next verse, "And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem." Now we see right now there was a massacre that happened in Axum, modern day Jerusalem, and we see all these things that are happening in Ethiopia. Well, why aren't they destroyed yet? Because again, we're still at this part where it says, "Yah also shall save the tents of Judah first." Once that happens, then all the enemies of Jerusalem, all these people that think they can get away with committing genocides and massacres against the people of the Most High, then they're going to be destroyed. Trust me, that's happening. But right now, we still, like I said, you have four pillars, and I want to highlight that again. You have the Crown Council of Ethiopia, also known as, with it being together with the royal family, the House of David. You have the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation, the Church of HAILE Selassie I, and the African diaspora. So those four aspects, well, the African diaspora that are in the West, the Americas and Caribbean, or actually I could just say, the tents of Judah. Those are the four pillars that are key towards the restoration of Israel. From those parts coming together. So, as we can see, you have those four pillars, and again, I'm also not neglecting the Northern Kingdom, because as we know, the Northern Kingdom has also been scattered to different parts around the world, and there are descendants of Israelites living among the Melanesians in the Sidi community in India, among the Aboriginals, and even among other native indigenous populations throughout the world. And, like I said, we're just scattered all over the place. But it's going to be those four pillars that are going to be instrumental in helping to bring those lost tribes back to the Holy Land, and to unite the two sticks of Israel, Ephraim and Judah, to come together to become a united kingdom again. So these are the four pillars that I want to highlight. So in another video, I want us to get into the next aspect, because so though we see now you have the second Exodus, it's picking up, but it hasn't really hit the fan yet. And this is why it's important, as it says, when two or three are gathered together in the name of Yah and Yeshua, the Most High will be in the midst. And then there's another part where it says a 3/4 cord is not easily broken. The more people we have coming together, and I always leave my contact information in the description, for like-minded people to reach out so that we can come together for this to undertake this process, because this is a process that must be done as a community, not on an individual level. Because, as I said, you have people repatriating, Israelites repatriating to the continent, but there's still another step to this, which I want to highlight in another video, where it talks about how once we come into the wilderness, we'll be required to confirm the covenant. So before we get to that Holy Land, there's still another process to go that still must be completed. But I just want to highlight the 4 pillars and how they're going to be very instrumental to the restoration of Israel and what is to come next.